down, down, down they go. Into the darkness of the grave, gently they go. The beautiful, the tender, the kind. Quietly they go. The intelligent, the witty, the brave. I know, but I do not approve. And I am not resigned.
In 1951, a woman died in Baltimore in America. She was called Henrietta Lacks. These are cells from her body. They were taken from her just before she died. They have been growing and multiplying ever since. There are now billions of these cells in laboratories around the world. If massed together, they would weigh 400 times her original weight. These cells have transformed modern medicine, but they also became caught up in the politics of our age. They shaped the policies of countries and of presidents. They even became involved in the Cold War, because scientists were convinced that in her cells lay the secret of how to conquer death. In 1860, a plantation owner in Virginia called Benjamin Lacks took a black mistress from among his workers. She bore him 2 children. They took their father's name, and for 3 generations the Lacks family worked in the fields. Then, in 1942, his great-granddaughter, Henrietta Lacks, decided to move to the city. She took her husband and family to Baltimore. It was wartime and there was money to be made. She was known to all her friends as Henny.
Oh my goodness, I don't think I could top her. Henny was a beautiful girl. I was beautiful myself. I called myself it back in them days. But Henny was very, very pretty. Beautiful face, round face. And I used to admire her dressing because she used to dress real fancy. I dressed good too, but she had a husband and she could afford fine dressing. And she liked pretty things. She likes nice things.
The cells stop growing, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes something happens to start them growing again, uncontrolled, dividing again, outlaws. Pressing on healthy tissues, healthy organs, growing, spreading throughout the body to start new malignant colonies. Is cancer.
6 miles away from where Henrietta lived was the laboratory of Dr. George Guy. Dr. Guy's ambition was to rid the world of cancer. He was convinced that the secret of how to do this lay inside the human cell. For 20 years he had been trying to grow human cells in test tubes.
Dr. Guy's simple dream was to be the first to successfully sustain the growth of human cells outside the body, so that in test tubes the secret of cancer cause could be exposed, and once exposed, altered and corrected.
The key, Dr. Guy believed, was to feed the cells on chicken blood. He did this by drawing blood from the heart of live chickens. He then mixed it with cancer tissue taken from patients in Baltimore's main hospital. His aim was to persuade the cancer cells to keep growing outside the body. Each time he filmed the results, but every attempt failed. After a few days, the cells always died. Then, on February the 1st, 1951, Henrietta Lacks was taken to Baltimore's main hospital. She had been sent to see a gynecologist.
I just happened to be the one who saw her when she first came in. And her history was very simple. She had had some intermenstrual spotting and bleeding, which is a sign of cancer, but it can be a sign of other things too. She was generally fine. There was no difficulty with the general examination. But on examination of the cervix by the eye with a suitable instrument, I was extremely impressed, and I can see that lesion today because it was not like an ordinary cancer. This was different. This didn't look like cancer. It was purple, and it bled very easily on touching. I'd never seen anything that looked like it, and I don't think I've ever seen anything look like it since. So it was a very special, different kind of what turned out to be a tumor.
Cancer?
As usual, a small piece of the cancerous tissue was cut off and taken to Dr. Guy.
I was eating lunch. We always ate lunch right in the laboratory, next to the mouse cages. And Dr. Guy came in with a petri dish, and he said that there was a specimen to put into culture. And what he had left me was a chunk of tumor tissue, and I took my scalpels like this. These were sterile, and the tissue would be in a petri dish like this, and you just cut it up, just like you're cutting up some meat. And then you added, according to his formula, so many drops of chicken plasma, just like I had done all the others. And lo and behold, it grew.
Henrietta Lacks' cells began to do what Guy had dreamed of. They started to grow in his laboratory. This is the film he took of their first week's growth.
Henrietta was sick. She was sick. You could hear her sometime all the way downstairs hollering. Oh, Lord, oh, Lord. I can't get no ease. Her stomach would be hurting her so bad. Jesus, help me. Help me. I didn't never hear nobody say that she had cancer. Nobody, you know, that was a secret word one time. If people had cancer, they didn't talk about it. They didn't talk about it. They was afraid.
These are Henrietta Lacks' cells filmed 6 weeks later. Each cell is now dividing every 20 hours. For any cancer, it was a record growth rate.
The cells exhibited the same growth in the test tube as they exhibited in her, namely that they were unstoppable and continued to grow in a very special way. So it was the first human cell line. Her tumor, incidentally, did not respond well to treatment.
Henrietta Lacks died on October the 4th, 1951.
Tonight, we will learn why scientists believe that cancer can be conquered.
That same evening, Dr. Guy appeared on a television science program to show off his breakthrough.
Now let me show you a bottle in which we have grown massive quantities of cancer cells.
As he held Henrietta Lacks' cells up to the camera, his assistant was in the autopsy room. Dr. Guy had sent her to get more of the precious cells from the dead body.
And I was all alone with my petri dish. And I walked in, and she was all completely open. And just, you could look in and see tumor everywhere on all the tissues. And her bladder was one complete solid mass of tumor.
We will show you some actual pictures of colonies in a test tube of cancer cells such as those I just showed you. It is quite possible that from fundamental studies such as these, that we will be able to learn a way by which cancer can be completely wiped out.
Henrietta Lacks' body was taken back south to be buried. Dr. Guy kept what he had done a secret from her family. He was worried they might sue him. He gave the cells a code name, HeLa, H-E-L-A, and told everyone they came from a woman called Helen Lane. Henrietta Lacks was forgotten by science, but her cells were about to become world famous. For the first time, anything could be tested on living human cells. Her cells were sent into space, accompanied by 2 white mice. The aim was to find out what would happen to human flesh in zero gravity. Cosmetic companies bought millions of her cells to test for possible side effects in their new products. The American military placed large flasks of HeLa cells next to atomic tests. They wanted to see what the effects of radiation would be on human tissue. And then came polio. HeLa cells were the perfect host on which to grow and study the polio virus. From this came the development of the vaccine that conquered the disease. And polio raised a further question. Might cancer too be caused by a virus? And if it was, could it too be cured?
It was hoped in the 50s that a virus could be discovered that had been a major cause of cancer and a vaccine developed to that virus to control cancer. And because Henrietta Lacks' cells were cancerous, they had to have the secret of what cancer was and how you could kill it.
The first step was to find out whether, like polio, cancer was infectious. Two scientists went to a maximum security prison in Ohio. They took with them large quantities of Henrietta Lacks' cells.
This is the first suspension that we'll be using this morning, and down at the bottom here you can see quite a pellet of concentrated cancer cells. This material, the suspension of cells, will then be taken up into a tuberculin syringe and merely injected underneath the skin of the forearm through an area that has been anesthetized with Novocaine.
They were inoculating them with HeLa cells under the skin to see if the HeLa cells would grow and cause a cancer. It seemed a very eminently reasonable thing to do. How else are you going to find out if HeLa cells in fact do, spread and cause cancer?
Well, now, why did you volunteer for this?
My grandmother, my father both died of cancer. And I believe that the wrong that I have done in the eyes of society this might make a right on it. I mean, I don't know.
Some of the prisoners developed small tumours, but not full-blown cancer. The results were inconclusive.
When they cut out the lower one on my arm, you can see here, the top one, they called me back after 14 days, and it did not have to be removed. It had died out in my system. So that is, they think that there's what they're trying to find, immunity to it.
But then other evidence emerged that seemed to prove there really might be a cancer virus. Henrietta Lacks was no longer alone in the cell world. Suddenly it seemed very easy to grow cells outside the body. Some were cancerous, others were normal. This is a heart cell growing inside a Petri dish. Each cell is beating with the same rhythm as the heart from which it came.
Out of this original push, attempts now proliferated everywhere to grow human cells, and many of them were successful. By God, they had cells from lung, and they had cells suddenly growing and rapidly from a variety, a whole spectrum of human tissues.
I had prostate surgery, and since the prostate grows so well in the body, I thought, well, it should be able to grow pretty well in our laboratory. So I made arrangements to have the surgeon cut off a piece of the prostate that is removed, mince it up with scissors, very fine, sharp scissors, in a sterile glass vessel. Because the finer you mince, the better you have, the better chance you have of getting a better yield of cells.
In the hunt to start new cell lines, other cell biologists turned to their own families.
I decided that I would try to establish a cell line from the amnion at the birth of one of my children. And on the day of my daughter's birth, I appeared with my wife and the collecting materials, which I gave to the nurse. And the material was duly collected. I took it back to the laboratory after assuring myself that my wife and new daughter were healthy. And within a few hours, I could look through the microscope and see the cells from my daughter's amnion.
Then the strangest thing began to happen. Many of the normal cell lines suddenly developed cancer. Normal cells lying open in the laboratory would abruptly transform into malignant cancer cells. It became known as spontaneous transformation.